Welcome to the deep dive. We've got this really detailed market analysis from April 16th, 2025.
Right.
And our job today is, to sift through it all, pull out the key price action, regulatory changes, what institutions we're up to, and yeah, the security side too.
Exactly. Cut through the noise
Basically give you the essential download on what actually mattered that day.
and maybe connect some dots, see why things happened. What really jumps out first is this kind of push and pull in the market feeling.
Okay, let's get into that market pulse then. Bitcoin dipped a bit, down to around $84,020. Seemed to hit a wall there.
Yeah, 84, 85,000. That resistance level probably triggered some profit taking,
Yeah.
Automated sells, maybe short-term traders cashing out after the rally.
So testing the waters above 85K and maybe a bit hesitant.
Seems like it. Ethereum, though, it took a harder hit. Down, maybe 5% during the day, bouncing around 1,500, $1,600.
Yeah, struggling below those big psychological levels like 2 grand, 3 grand.
Yeah.
The analysis mentioned the Denkin upgrade and maybe lower developer engagement.
Despite whale accumulation still happening. It's complex.
And then the altcoins, really all over the place. Cardano down with ETH. Solana, surprisingly, holding steady after its DXs, did more volume than Ethereum last week.
Which was quite something.
Right. XRP down, even with ETF talks swirling, and Fartcoin looks like a big holder, just sold off.
That altcoin mix really shows you how separate stories can still move things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even when the big coins are doing something else, that Bitcoin cooling off slightly, plus ETH dropping more sharply, maybe points to a bit of risk off, just for that day.
Interesting. Okay, let's look at where the money was actually moving. Big story seems to be outflows from the U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs, like $795 million for the week. That sounds significant.
It does, a big number. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, at the same time, you had direct corporate buying picking up steam.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Well, Strategy bought more. Metaplanet added another chunk, Semler Scientific talking about raising $500 million for Bitcoin. And BlackRock's tokenized treasury fund, BUIDL, keeps growing fast.
Huh. So ETF investors pulling back, maybe retail heavy,
Possibly.
while corporations are buying directly for their treasuries. That's quite a contrast.
It's a major divergence. It really makes you wonder, right? Are they seeing Bitcoin differently? Short-term trade versus maybe a long-term strategic reserve?
Good question. Okay, let's shift gears to regulation. What's happening stateside? OKX planning a U.S. return after a settlement.
Yeah, trying to get back in.
Talk about a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, maybe funded by tariffs. That's a wild idea. DeFi reporting rules repealed. SEC had a roundtable, clarified some things about POW mining and stablecoins not usually being securities.
Which is helpful guidance,
Definitely. And the DOJ got rid of its specific crypto unit, but says they'll still prosecute fraud. Plus, state-level stuff. New York thinking about Bitcoin for payments, passing pro-blockchain laws. It's a real mix.
It absolutely is. You've got enforcement, policy talks, maybe some easing. It's not one single direction.
Yeah.
And the state stuff shows crypto's embedding itself, but unevenly.
And globally. Just as varied, I take it.
Pretty much. South Korea booting unregistered exchanges from app stores, KuCoin, MEXC mentioned. Athena Labs pulling USD out of Germany over my car rules.
Right, the European framework.
Exactly. Then Canada's looking at spot Solana ETFs, maybe even with staking allowed. That's different from the U.S. stalling on e-staking ETFs. Australia's working on its rules, too. No single global approach yet.
That fragmentation. It's got to be tricky for businesses operating everywhere.
Oh, for sure. Creates real complexity, impacts access, innovation, everything.
Okay, finally, security. Always a big one.
Yeah.
Sounds like April 16th had its share of incidents.
Unfortunately, yes. A $5 million ZK token theft via an admin hack. A lawsuit over a phantom wallet vulnerability. Someone lost $500,000 in Wiener Doge. It says the private key got lifted from browser memory.
Ouch. And that $30 million Bitcoin theft, using social engineering even against a hardware wallet, that's scary sophisticated.
It really is. Shows it's not just about the tech. Human element is key. An NHOA token crashed 90%. Unclear why fraud or liquidations. Plus a Kilo X exploit. A Bybit heist linked to Lazarus Group.
And even a crypto exec losing $100K on a Zoom scam.
Wow. Yeah, the social engineering angle is relentless. But there is some positive stuff. Aztec's stealth note for whistleblowers. Fuse working with Checkpoint on firewalls. People are building defenses.
So, wrapping up this deep dive for April 16th, 2025, It feels like a day of real contrasts. You had short-term jitters in some parts of the market.
Reflected in those ETF outflows.
Right, but then this deep, maybe long-term conviction from corporations buying directly.
Yep. And a regulatory world that's getting more active but still figuring things out globally creates this complex picture.
Insecurity just remains a constant evolving challenge. Plus, ongoing innovation trying to expand what Bitcoin and other cryptos can do.
Exactly. That tension, short-term versus long-term, regulation versus innovation, that's the space right now.
So here's a final thought to leave folks with. Looking at those ETF investors pulling back while corporations load up, what does that really signal about Bitcoin's future role? Is it just a speculative asset for most, or is it becoming this fundamental strategic reserve for others?
And tied to that, how will all this increasing regulatory attention mesh with or maybe challenge the whole decentralized idea that started it all?
Definitely something to think about. We'll leave it there for this deep dive.